Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth, curly-haired country gal, and it's time to build more hives! This time, 6. So I recorded the original video for this months ago, but here I am finally finishing it, and I want to share 12 things that I learned in the second go-around of making hives. I've got my headband on to hopefully keep as much sawdust out of my hair as possible, and I like my setup here. So this time I went ahead and set up a canopy. I got the table saw out. I have some extra tables for supplies and tools, and we have this table that has our plywood on it. So my husband picked up 8 sheets of plywood, and we're hoping, mainly me, but he might help a little bit, hoping to turn this into 6 more hives. So number one thing I'm doing differently is using a circular saw to cut the plywood instead of trying to kind of dangerously run it through a table saw. If you remember from one of my more recent videos, I did some splits. I thought they didn't succeed. I got more queens. It turned out they did succeed, so I had 2 extra queens, so I did more splits, which I'm waiting to see if that's going to be successful or not. But that would mean that I would have 12 colonies, but I only have 9 hives right now. So it's time to build some more hives. I'm feeling a lot more confident this time, that I'm just feeling like, man, this is gonna take so long. But just kind of eating an elephant, I guess.
It's an elephant.
Just one bite at a time, and I wanna continue to rest and not worry that the Lord's in control, so here we go. Now, I was just about to cry this morning because I thought I was so ready to go. And I looked at this blade that I got. I tried so hard to get a thin 3/32 kerf blade like Dr. Leo says in the plans, but I got a rip blade. I didn't even know that was a thing. The teeth are really wide, and I think the point of having, well, part of the point is that it's thin, 3/32, but part of it is supposed to be that it's supposed to give it a nice finish. So I'm kind of thinking I'm just going to stick with the blade that I used last time, which is not a thin kerf blade. I forget exactly. It's the most narrow one they had, but it's more of a fine finish one, so I think I'm just going to return this other one that I got. Time to make some measurements and make some cuts. The second thing I learned with that whole cutting dado things is that the table saw that we have tends to drop a little bit. The blade tends to drop over time. So you just want to know your table saw, I guess. That's what I'm finding. Okay, so a quick midday check-in. The cutting's going well. It's kind of slow, but I've got lots of the pieces cut, kind of strewn across our garage. Good morning! It's day 2 of the build. It's actually Thursday. I started on Tuesday, but I gave Jared a day off yesterday. Anyway, things are going well. I was able to get through steps. I was able to complete steps 1 through 5 my first day. All the cuts, including maybe my least favorite part, which is trying to do the dados. In the video that I made building 3 hives last year, I showed how I did it, and some people were like, you shouldn't do it that way, that's really dangerous. And so I did what I did last year, which is basically just shaving off a few rows at a time and then kind of going back and forth to file it off. I know, I just need to get a dado blade. I just haven't yet. Unfortunately, they're still cut probably an 1/8, at least a 1/16, if not an 1/8 of an inch too wide. But I think it'll still be okay like it was last time. So on to step 6. But I do have a finish nailer this time, which I think is going to make things go really smoothly. I got everything rearranged in here, and it's very reminiscent of making meals for my family. We've got everything all lined up, times 6.
I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, He prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself.
Now it's time to put the insulation in, and thankfully this is all leftover insulation that I got last year when I was doing hives. I think it's going to be plenty. And another huge thing was asking for seconds. So I don't know that much about wool, but there was somebody who had alpaca who had seconds that she was getting rid of for free. I guess it's, you know, they have a nice first cut, and then the seconds are what's left over. And so I got another whole bunch of wool for next time for free. So ask around.
Unless it abides in the vine, neither can you. Unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in...
Now for the M's, aka step 8. So I'm sure this is obvious to you. It's increasingly obvious to me, but you just really have to measure multiple times and then cut once. I made multiple mistakes. Let me show you those and what I learned from it. The lesson I learned from this step was to make sure to use a speed square or something to make sure that the frame is in fact square as you make it. I used it to kind of align these three, and they turned out really nice. I didn't use it over here, and there is definitely a little bit of a lip on that side and not on that side, so I'm gonna have to shave those two off. If not, well, this one I think is fine.
He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you...
I was on a roll last night and I realized my mistake here. I went ahead and did 13/16 for the width of both notches, but this one's supposed to be 1 3/16. So now I have to recut all the C's. So I just got those C's recut. Thankfully I had to take off more. It's always better to have to take off more than to have taken off too much. So let's try again. There we go. So because I had cut one of these A pieces a little too short, there's like a 1/4 inch slit all the way down here with this side already secured. So I just went ahead and made a little shim, and I'll just stick it in there to secure it. Since I made that correction, I went ahead and just made a little note here that I'm probably going to need a slightly wider top, or roof I called it, for this one. So this has happened a few times so far where I don't take care like I should to line up A on both sides. I just push it flush up against this side, but then there's a gap over here, then it makes a gap here. So I made a note in the plans. It says align the edges of C. Well, I'm sorry, I should have put it up here. Attach A to G. That needs, you need to just make sure that you're doing it flush and even. I'm through step 10 now. We've got the inner frames. And now it's time for a late breakfast.
If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples.
I like steps 12 and 13. It feels like I'm kind of more in my element with clamps and glue and screwing things in, as opposed to running things through the table saw. So when I was making the cuts, it said that the R's and S's are 1.5 inches wide. Now again, this is just my inexperience, but I thought, oh, okay, well, 2x4, it's actually 3 3/4 inches, so if I just cut that in half, that'll be good. But no, you really need to measure every one, because it was a little over, so I ended up needing to run all those through the saw again to make sure they're 1.5 inches, because now that I've done this before, I remember last time that some of these were too wide, and when these are too wide, it makes it too wide down here, and it's hard to put the last panel on to close it up. Overall, I think I'm definitely getting better at this, which is really encouraging, and I think they're looking really nice. So on to 14. Okay, I'm seeing my mistake again here, and I know I did this last time too. So the width of E is supposed to be 1.5 inches. Now this is my favorite part, where we start to put the insulation in the outer walls, and then it really starts to come together.
As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love, abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you, as I have loved you.
Things are going great. I'm about a third of the way done with the outer walls. So we've got 1 and 2. And this is the third one. This is the first one where I can see, oops, on the other side, that I need to notch this out a little bit so that the wall can go on. So I've got my handy dandy oscillating something. We call it Oscar. And after Oscar, it looks beautiful. Alright, the rabbits on W have been cut. And again, something I'm going to work on next time that I made a note of on here is to make sure to check what my actual width of view is after I make the cuts. It was a little less than 3/4 of an inch, but I cut this to 3/4 of an inch, so there's kind of a space here. But again, after having made these once before, I'm still going to line U up to the edge and make it flush with W so that the roof, well, first of all, so there's not an overhang, but also so that the lid is a little bit spacious as opposed to a little bit too tight. I do have some lids that are too tight and they're kind of a pain to get on and off. So now I'm going to drill the holes for the drainage. So yeah, wiggle room on the lid is nice. Good morning. This has been such a great week. So this is my third day starting on the hives. I'm so pleased with how much I've been able to get done. My brother Mikey and I took about 3 or 4 days working together to make 3 hives last year. And this year I was very surprised, happily surprised to find out that I could make 6 hives in that same amount of time, now that I have a little more practice and better tools for the job. By the way, yesterday I was able to host, well, Friday and Saturday I was able to host foraging walks with Bo Brown. So Lord willing, there will be videos on that later as we look at all of the richness and nutrient density around us that we don't even think about. But anyway, all I have left before the outside is to go ahead and put the, I don't know, whatever these pieces are, up as a stop for the lids. I am running out of glue, so that's one thing I've learned. This bottle was about 3/4 of the way full when I started. It's 16 ounces. And so I've learned that if you're going to make 6 hives, you're definitely going to need a full one of these, if not more. So 3/4 of a bottle of glue, not enough. Okay, the lid supports are done. Let's see if it fits. Hooray! So that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 hives. I do need to order more entrance discs though. So at this point it feels like I should be done, but I'm not. So the last things shouldn't take too long though. I still need to put the mosquito netting in the holes of the lids, paint it and stain it, put the metal on the lid, put the entrance discs on, and then put the braces on the corners. But thankfully those things are not going to take as long as everything else. Now something else that I've learned that's not really in the directions, but I kind of wish that it was just all the extra things that you want to make sure to plan on having. For example, the spacer board for the piece in the roof to hold it up, the divider board for inside the hive, and actually I want to have 2 for every hive to be able to do splits in the spring. You want to have boards to put under your hive on your cement blocks so that it doesn't start to rot. And I have a note that you should have a 3-foot board. I think that's for measuring how far apart you want your cement blocks, because the hive is 3 feet long. I think that's what I was going for with that. My chickens are squawking, so I'm gonna head this way and make sure the little chicks are okay. I've been working on the paintings for the hives over a few days as I've had time, and we just did our once a month big shopping trip, and I have the rest of the supplies that I need. I was able to pick up the trim coil, which I anticipate will cover about 24 hive, and I have the caulk for the missteps I had on the outside. I got a bunch of screen that will last a very, very long time. I have my leftover disc entrances from last time. This time I'm going to go ahead and try using this concrete sealer instead of spar urethane, so I'm going to experiment with that. And guys, I finally got a dado blade set. Oh, the other thing I'm going to try is I went ahead and got these plastic corner trim pieces. I'm gonna try these on the outside. They were $9 for 8 feet as opposed to $20 or more for the aluminum corners. So they might not last quite as long, but they're half the price and they won't rust since they're plastic. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And the reason for the concrete sealer as opposed to the spar urethane is mainly just because I really haven't been happy with how the spar urethane is held up. It really doesn't seem to have held up very well. And I thought about using epoxy resin, and just making like a thin sheet of plastic on top of it, but that is really expensive. It would have been like $80 for basically one hive, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna try something else. Here's what the concrete sealer looks like. It just looks like really thick water. It's kind of trippy. So I did go with this foil this time. So this is going to be less cost but more time, which is always the trade-off with projects like this. So that's what I found, and I'm really happy with how the lids turned out.
Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends, if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all things that I heard from my Father I have made known to you.
So far, I'm really happy with this cement seal. It's so glossy and shiny, and I think it looks great. And as an update from a few months ago, I'm still really happy with how the cement is holding up. I'll have to touch base next spring to see how it held up over the winter. And that's the same for the plastic corners.
You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. These things I command you, that you love one another.
So this is the chicken that was just picking on the chicks that I just put in there. This is a pretty recent acquisition. He's got a beautiful, I'm not actually sure if this is a hen or a rooster. I think it's a hen. But look how pretty this chicken is. Not a nice little rose comb. Anyway, picking on the babies. Quit that. So she's just going to be in timeout and keep me company. So here's the final product of all 3 of the hives.
If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. Yet because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. And all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know him who sent me.
And as I was editing this video, I realized, oh, I forgot the 12th thing. And if I was you, this would be the thing I would be most interested in, which is knowing exactly how much it cost, roughly, to make 6 hives. So it worked out to being about $125 per hive. And as far as time, it took about 3 full 8-hour days of working. So approximately 24 hours, probably plus a little bit more with that. I think about a third of the time was just for the cuts, about a third of the time, one day for assembling everything, and then one day for kind of miscellaneous things, the painting, ceiling, trim, roof, disc entrances, etc. Now, an update on the hives. I had 12 colonies at the beginning of this video, but I am at 11 now. I lost 1 colony. It was in full sun, a 12-frame uninsulated hive that experienced comb collapse. So that's a problem that, as natural beekeepers with these deep frames that we run into, Monty the Suburban Sodbuster has a great hypothesis for a solution, which is to crisscross the wire as we frame them. So stick around, like this video, and subscribe and hit the notification bell, because my next video is going to be about the frames that I made, 120 of them. But I'm going to go ahead and crisscross some, if not all, of the frames to give it a try for next year. This is actually September 14th, I think. So it's almost time to start wrapping up my second year of natural beekeeping. But frames are next, and then already prep for next year. I'm hoping that I can build another 6, if not 12 hives and frames to go with it over the winter for next year, as well as some swarm traps or nuke boxes to maybe be able to start selling bees. Thanks for coming along this naughty chicken tonight. We'll see you later. Now, you're really pretty, but you gotta be pretty on the inside, not just pretty on the outside. Okay? You got it? Good talk.